What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Joe from Within the Ruins. Thank you for your time today, man. It's great to have you here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Anytime. So, we're finally getting a brand new Within the Ruins album, Black Heart, scheduled to come out November 27th. Do you want to just talk about, like, how the making of this album was in terms of, like, the recording and the songwriting, you know, bringing in a new vocalist, like, really how the making of Black Heart sort of came to be?
Yeah, talk about whatever you would like. Depends on how much time. I could go on forever. This album took, like, a very long time, but, so Steve, this is his first full length with us, and we spent a lot of time getting to know each other as far as like in the studio, and I did like most of the stuff, pretty much the whole album in my studio. I have a kind of a private studio where we tracked everything and where I wrote all the demos and et cetera. But so the guys would fly up. Once we got like a lot of the demos done, the guys would fly up here, Paul and Steve from San Antonio, like every like 3 or 4 months, and we'd do vocals on 2 to 3 songs at a time. But yeah, it was like it is the weirdest writing process ever for a Within the Ruins album, in a good way. But having a new member, being Steve, and just getting it took a lot of time to kind of get to know each other in the studio, like in the writing process. Like I had to figure out where he was coming from, and also this is like our, I think, 6th album, so I also was like, what the hell are we doing now? Like, yeah, we've gone through, so, you know, so I always try to find a new direction, but find something that kind of fit Steve and kind of highlighted what he felt and where he was coming from. So yeah, it was like a lot of trial and error. We probably scrapped about 3 to 4 songs throughout the process as well until we really got something going. But we took our time. Like I said, we did it at my studio, so that was another reason that it took so we took long purposely, because we had the advantage of like doing it on our own time and stuff. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you're ever worried like the songs that you scrapped are going to be a B-side one day, just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
I mean, it's it's not like they're bad songs. They were just they were like, whenever I start writing for an album, it's like you don't know what you're doing until you're like really into it. It takes like a while to kind of find the direction for the album, I think. So those were like those songs. They're still good songs, but yeah, you never know. There's vocals on them and everything. We have like, I think 4 songs that we thought we just like blew away once we got further into the process. So we were like, all right, throw those aside. Maybe they'll be bonus tracks, or we'll release them later. But I hope not. I hope we didn't throw away the best songs.
Do you feel that the 2 singles that you have so far released, Deliverance and the title track being Black Heart, like, do you think that these are maybe a clear representation of what the entirety of Black Heart is going to sound like, or is that just the tip of the iceberg?
No, they're not. They're definitely not a representation of the whole album. Definitely not. But I think the ones we chose to release first kind of set the pace. And our goal, we had a lot of goals as we got into this, but you know, coming back with a new singer, I'm sure. I mean, being a fan of music, it's weird when bands get new members. I feel the same way when I listen to a band that I love and something's different about it. But I try to embrace it. But our idea was to like come out and like kick ass and just in your face, like, so people were like, okay, Within the Ruins, they got it. You know, we've been doing it for a long time. So, and those were like the last couple songs I think that we finished together. And I always think the last group of songs are the strongest, and that's where you've found, again, where you find our groove. And but there's a lot of different stuff. There's a lot of stuff reminiscent of like our first album, even Creature and Invade, and that's just all maybe because it was written over the course of a few years, I somewhere along the line I thought to maybe go back to our roots in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some familiarity with the band still being Steve being a new member, but like it kind of encompasses like all the greatest parts, riff wise and music wise, from our whole catalog. But then there's lots of new stuff. I think there's a few songs where fans of the band might be like, what the hell is this? In a good way, but
yeah,
there's some surprises for sure.
Yeah, when I was listening to this album, I thought that there was some reminiscence of like what was off of Creature or Invade or maybe even Elite. But I also, being that this is technically the follow-up to Halfway Human, I even think that there was some of that rage incorporated in there as well. So I think it's almost fair to say that Blackheart can almost be kind of like a bit of a retrospective of what Within the Ruins is capable of, right?
I would agree with that, and it wasn't done purposely like that. It just happened. Maybe it's just where we're at with the band, and we've gone through these different phases of like trying shit out and trying to like find figure out what works and what we are. And it was having Steve join the band was almost a restart for us. It was very refreshing in a way once we got into it, and so yeah, it was like we're still doing this. We love it. Let's just be us. Let's not try to do this on this album or try to do this. So I think that's why some of the older style kind of came out on this one, because I was like, who gives a shit? We've done as much experimenting. It's just like, let's get back to it.
Yeah. So it wasn't like for the making of this that you were revolving around like a preconceived idea or anything like that. There was just a lot of like go into it, and it was very, very organic, right?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. And it's weird because it's never happened like that, writing an album. So, and like I said, there were many different circumstances throughout, writing an album and recording it for 2 years. That's a long time in 4 guys' lives, so it happened organically because we had the time, I think, versus we would normally get off tour and it'd be like, all right, write an album for 2 months and then go record. And so then when you do it like that, you're like, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to do this style, this structure. We're going to have this in this song. We're going to have this single. Like, you kind of think about it ahead of time. And so it's still fun, but
yeah. So did these songs maybe like in a way change a lot over a span of time just because you were working on it for a long extended period of time, or is what we're hearing on this album like how they were originally made?
Oh, dude, they were like, they all changed, yeah. But it's like, so some of them are like the first track on the album, Domination, was like around like the first group of songs where I was like, all right, I think I'm starting to like what I'm writing. And that was me just going back to like, I literally like will listen to old influences and even some of our old shit to refresh myself and go back to like, oh, I remember when I was writing like that. So that song, like that first song on the album, is like very old. I think I started writing it in like 2017.
Oh wow!
And but it's like I said, I have my studio, so I'll work on it. Maybe I worked on it for 2 months, and then I'm like bored, and then I start a new song, and then I start another song, and then like 6 months later, I'll go back to that one. And I'll be like, oh shit, why did I, then it starts to change. So yeah, it's ridiculous how much they can change. And the coolest thing, is like having this much time. I notice every time we put an album out, after we play it live for a year, or we listen to it for a year, we start thinking of stuff where we're like, why didn't we do that there? Like our drummer will sing a harmony, or he'll do a fill, like to some shit that's already been out for a while. I'm like, oh, that would have been sick.
Yeah.
So doing this album, the coolest part was we were able to do that. Like, we were able to get sick of the songs before the songs even were done. And so that allowed them to morph, like, into what they are now. So, yeah, basically, the album turned into, I don't even know how it got to the way it is, but it's definitely, if you heard some of the first demos and shit, you'd be like, what?
Yeah. Well, that's art in general, though. Like, how many times have you went in with something supposing to go one way and then it ends up completely different? I think that's the beauty of it, because art is sort of like life in itself. It grows and develops on its own, too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For your guitar work, which I find truly remarkable, I really definitely consider it an integral sound of Within the Ruins. Do you actually have like a theoretical element behind your guitar playing? Like, I'm working off of this scale, or are you more on like the self-taught spectrum?
Thanks, I appreciate that. I don't really think. I don't know any theory or anything like that. I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Definitely was self-taught. I learned by just like sitting down in front of the stereo and learning every song I could, like by ear. Mm-hmm. So, and I never even, as this band went on, after we got signed, put a record out, I still never even thought of pursuing it, because for some reason, maybe I was just young and immature, but I always thought that learning theory and learning too much and knowing too much would affect the creative side.
Sure.
And that's just, like, theory's great. Now, actually, that I'm 34, I wish I knew more stuff, but I don't really care. I just sit, I write by, whatever I think in my head, and I figure out harmonies and things by sitting down and spending time. I'm not like a studio shredder guy where you could be like, all right, there's that, now hit the harmony and then do this. Like, I have to actually sit down and think and be like, oh wait, I have to figure it out, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you find it maybe easier to come up with ideas when you're maybe in the company of your other bandmates, or do you kind of like need to be alone where there's nothing in between you and the guitar?
Well, both, because I start writing by myself in my studio. Yeah, I can't really write with people, and our band has never really been like that. It's always been like, even before we had computers and a studio, it was me writing riffs on a 4-track, and then I would play it live to our drummer, Kevin, but we call him drummer. And then we would play it live in our practice space. But I always did all my shit first. Like, I can't write with people. But then also, now that we have our own studio and we are doing everything on our own, there's another side to it where it's like, as we're recording and I hear Steve lay down vocals, or Apollo comes up with a vocal harmony or just a vocal, like a melodic vocal thing, I'm like, oh shit, that'd be sweet. So there's definitely a lot, but it's in the later part of the writing, but there's definitely a lot of all of us together to finish the album. Do you know,
yeah.
Guitar-wise, basically everything is completely done. I just do it, and then I present it to the band. But there's a lot of creativity going on when we're all together in the studio, and it's a totally different type of creativity. And so yeah, both, I guess.
Yeah, having your own studio, I think maybe have had to open your ideas as well, right? Because you kind of have like your own atmosphere that you could adjust it. I mean, I've interviewed so many artists where they dread going to the studio, even if they're excited to make the new material and release it. But like, they say that sometimes the studio is like a very uptight atmosphere. It's very like, static. It's very, dreary sometimes. So I'd imagine maybe having your own studio to make the music in, it kind of maybe helped with the Within the Ruins songwriting as well, right?
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, I always enjoyed, like, the first studio we went to for our first album was Zing Studios, which is in Westfield, where we live here, and like all of your Western Mass metalcore bands, like so many great bands and albums came out of there, and bands recorded there. And we went there for our first one. And it was cool, loved it, but you had to be prepared. You had to have the shit written, and which was fine. But I don't know. I just, like I said, we were also recording ourselves with like 4-tracks and shit when we were in high school. So I always had I always had my hands in that a little bit, and always liked it more when I could sit by myself and do the shit the way I wanted to. So yeah, I agree. I mean, like, you're in the studio, there's pressure for sure, but there's also magic that happens when you're under pressure. I mean, I remember writing a few songs for Creature, a few songs for Invade when we were in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. But, yeah, sorry, I'm want to know. Cut me off when I'm blabbing.
No, I keep blabbing. I love it.
I just always watched and I was always engaged with the engineering part of it, and always like, it's like, what is he doing? What is he doing at the board? Like, and as we kept doing albums, I was like, well, I think I could probably just do this. I think I could probably figure it out if I get Pro Tools and a computer, and like maybe, and then we could just. It just kind of happened, but like that was always my thought, I think. So it's very cool that it eventually happened. Like right around Halfway Human is when I started doing our records. I did some Phenomena stuff, but Halfway was mostly us on our own, and this was the first one where we just literally did it all ourselves. And it's also a curse too, because like you have so much time that you have to make sure you motivate yourself and set time aside to be like, because my studio is right here where I work. It's part of the brewery that I own, and it's always here, open, ready to go. But so when it's too available, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I'll get in there, I'll do it, and then it's like
you take it for granted.
I mean, I don't. Yes, I definitely don't take it for granted, but I get what you're saying. It is kind of like it's different than being pressured and being on someone else's time.
Definitely. And I have a couple more questions for you, but I feel like even though you like are a very, very intense band, I feel like you've toured with like a variety of different styles of heavy bands. Like I remember like the first time checking you guys out on Summer Slaughter in 2014, where you were playing with like Morbid Angel and Dying Fetus.
Yeah.
That was one of the best lineups for any tour I've ever seen for a death metal show. Goat Horror and The Faceless and stuff. But then you've toured with like more metalcore oriented bands like As They Lay Dying. So like, have you noticed maybe like different reactions or maybe different types of audiences depending on the tours you've been on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we're used to. We've been a DIY band since we started. Like we started touring before we got signed, like for years. Yeah, that's also part of like what I love about the band. Somehow our style, I just like to incorporate I listen to a lot of different shit, and I like to incorporate as much as I can. I like it to be versatile. I like a lot of different people maybe you don't like metal and you like our band, or maybe you don't, So maybe I don't even consciously do it, but I like to bring in as many different parts of the genre as I can. And so that allowed us to be able to, like we could do a tour with, it's not like it was Summer Slaughter, but like being on tour with Dying Fetus was like, what? Like, but because we're all different types of metal, so it's like a pile of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember when we first started touring, we'd play hardcore shows, and then this metal band from Massachusetts driving around in a van, showing up at a venue in Texas, and like we were the only touring band, quote unquote, so we would get the later spot and headline almost, and people would just fucking hardcore shows, people would just stare at us or walk out. Like, it's hilarious, but we're always used to it. But yes, we've done all types of tours, and I'm glad that our band can kind of pull that off. You have to do different shit. You got to try to you can always gain new fans. Not everyone's just this and just that and just Dying Fetus and just As Lay Dying. So
yeah, Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is coming from Western Massachusetts, which I consider to be one of the biggest, most prominent metal capitals of the East Coast. I mean, were you guys kind of like affiliated? Because even though you guys are, I consider you guys to actually be somewhat of a newer band, even though you have 6 albums out now. Like, because I was a freshman in high school when Creature came out, and like, you know, the metal crowd was just getting into you guys. But like, were you like in the scene with like Killswitch Engage and Unearth and Shadows Fall? Is that where you guys kind of sort of cut your teeth in a way when you started?
No, actually, I feel like we're a weird band from Western Mass, because when those bands, like, I don't know, when Unearth and like 98, 99, I think they were putting shit out. I was a freshman in 2000. I was going to those shows. Like, I watched Killswitch and Unearth and like all these bands at these local venues around here before they were even big bands. I was in high school, but you could definitely feel like we had a ridiculous like scene happening for some reason, and Within the Ruins was like a little bit. I think we were just a lot younger. Like, I think we're a decade behind Killswitch, really. So. Like, we know most of the bands I've mentioned from just touring and whatever, but yeah, we were a little bit behind all those bands. But those bands were the reason, like, that we do what we do. Like, Killswitch and Unearth and Acacia Strain. Like, I'm not saying it just because we're from Western Mass, but like, we had a sick scene, and we were like, watching these bands come out of like get big. And we're like, holy shit! What they're doing is working, so let's do that.
Yeah, it just seemed like Massachusetts, like every band, like it started. I feel like Converge was almost like the band that like broke the mold, and then it was like Shadows Fall, then it was Killswitch, then it was the Acacia Strain, Revocation. Like, there's just so many intense styles of bands. I've always said that like Massachusetts is the, you know, not hardcore. I feel like New York still owns all of you motherfuckers on that, but. But when it comes to metal, I feel like Massachusetts really is the capital on that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't take any credit whatsoever for that. But for some reason, around that time, there was just everyone was always like, there was something in the water in Western Mass, and yeah, like literally, I was listening to some podcast the other day with Jesse from Killswitch, and he referenced Converge as well, and it was cool to hear him say the same thing I'm saying, but about 10 years earlier. And so it was going on for a while in Massachusetts, and yeah, I don't know. It was a really good time, and a lot of great bands came up, and we were just kind of following what everyone else did. Like once Killswitch started doing Killswitch was the top. Like, I saw them, God forbid, headlined over them at a home show, like at Fat Cats, I think, here.
Yeah.
When I was like a freshman. And it was right when I heard about Killswitch, but I started listening to Live or Just Breathing, and like the structure and this chorus, that whole thing, like they defined like metalcore, if you will.
I think they perfected it. I don't think they...
All right, sorry. I mean, there was Soilwork doing it. There was some of those like bands, In Flames and stuff, but yeah, maybe just in my mind here for us, I was like, that's it. They figured out, like they refined it for sure.
Yeah. I've always said that Shadows Fall of One Blood is the first metalcore as we know it album.
Yeah, you know what? That's like, I'll agree with that. There was a local record store, Platypus, like right next door to where I am right now, actually. And I remember buying Shadows Fall when I was like, their album was at the counter there. I think I was like 9 years old or something. Yeah. And I forget which album it was, but yeah, I can't even remember that far back. It depends what we're talking as far as influences, but all that shit, yeah.
Yeah, if we continue going around the rabbit hole, we'll be on the phone. We'll be on the phone for the next like 2 years. But before we go, I do want to thank you so much for your time. Just obviously, thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named, obviously touring isn't happening on the moment. But I'd imagine, when all this is over, we'll be seeing Within the Ruins on the road quite a bit. Is there anything you would like to promote, maybe some live stream performances or merch that people could pick up?
Yeah, we're looking forward to getting on the road, but doesn't look like it's too soon. But the album, our new album, Blackheart, comes out November 27th. We have a bunch of pre-order packages available and a couple videos out, a couple singles out. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just thanks to everyone who enjoys the band and still supports our band and just metal and music in general. So we're pumped to get back on the road whenever the hell that can happen.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you here. But thank you so much, Joe. Everybody, we are here with Joe of Within the Ruins. Be sure to pick up Blackheart, coming out November 27th via E1. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.